Okay, I will call this meeting to order. We have the agenda in front of us. Any changes? Councillor Adams,
Motion to accept the agenda as presented.
any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So on our agenda tonight, actually, sorry, before I jump into this, I would love to do a quick land acknowledgement. So in the spirit of respect and authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of the Sauridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit people who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. With that, we do have a delegation tonight. We actually have two of them, but we'll start with the Watershed Council, and Megan is on Zoom. Megan, the word on the street is you're having an interesting day.
Yeah, it's been a day. Vehicle
you're looking for scam traps, I heard. Okay, I will call this meeting to order. We have the agenda in front of us. Any changes? Okay, we got some technology stuff happening. Just one sec. Councillor Adams.
Motion to accept the.
That sounds a lot like me. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Okay, Megan, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Megan, we got your stuff that you've sent already, your form and your letter request. But the floor is yours.
I did make a quick PowerPoint for you guys.
Okay.
So I will share my screen and show you that. So I did intend on being there in person, but you know, life happens. So I did just want to check in with you guys. I don't think I've seen you in person or at all since like COVID and everything that's going on. So I wanted to check in and give an update kind of on the things that we've been up to in the last year. So highlights of 2020, we turned 15 as an organization. So that was exciting. I'm 1 year behind at 14 years, but the girls figured they're just going to roll it all into one celebration. We had a nice annual general meeting in person this year in Canuso. It was well attended. And we gave away our second Elliott and Roche Memorial Bursary to students pursuing sciences. So one in ag and one conservation officer program in Lethbridge. And then one of the highlights of my summer was working with Michael Short to do our Swan River Arctic grayling video. And it's about 10 minutes long. I'm not going to show it, but if you guys are interested, you can find it and watch it. So quick update on some of our projects. We have been monitoring tributaries around the lake that flow into the lake since 2017. It's about a $50,000 a year program when you total up all the people time, analytical, field costs, etc. We have a 5-year summary report that's available on our website. And if you want a copy specifically emailed to you, I can do that. Some of the findings were that some of our sites, we weren't seeing a lot of differences between them. So we dropped some sites, and then for years 6 to 10, we added sites on the east side of the watershed. So Martin Creek, Lesser Slave River, Driftwood River, Salto River, and the Ottawa. And most of the funding for this program does come from the forest sector and oil and gas company donations. The government of Alberta does not do any monitoring in this basin routinely, and they don't fund any. So it was kind of up to us to put together a program that we could implement and keep going, that was affordable and that we could do with our own staff capacity. And then an interesting way to share our data, we participate in this group called Mackenzie Data Stream. So if you go to their website, and it's kind of a map interface, you can zoom in and check out our sample points and pull the data up. Here's our map. I don't know how big your screen is there, but those are the 15 locations on the map that we are currently sampling. And then we do some winter and summer lake monitoring as well. So we partner with the Alberta Lake Management Society on lake monitoring, and that allows us to, we put in the staff time, but they pay for the analytical and do the data management piece, which is nice. And this summer we went out 4 times, and We sampled 2 spots on the East Basin, 2 spots on the West Basin. Alberta Environment and Parks actually did do a pretty rigorous sampling of the lake, both basins. It kind of gets treated as 2 lakes because of the narrows and the different characteristics on each side. So they did do a pretty rigorous sampling. They brought 2 teams of people out and they came out 4 times. So like June, July, August, September. And they went around the perimeter of each basin. So they did 16 sites on each basin, but they're not publishing a report on any of that information. And people want to know. So I'm working with the Alberta Lake Management Society staff to pull together that data set and share the findings. So that'll be ready this winter and I'll make sure it gets sent your guys' way for information. Some of you keeners will read it. And another partnership we did this summer, I'm sure you guys have heard about zebra and quagga mussels and how awful they are as an invasive. We partnered with Alberta Environment and Parks, and we did sampling at all the marinas around Lesser Slave Lake and Fawcett Lake, looking for the larval form of these mussels, which is kind of like a clear little worm. So it's kind of a sweep sample. And again, we did the field work and then we preserved the samples and sent them to Edmonton and Alberta Environment and Park staff. Somebody gets the fun job of going through those. They kind of look like pea soup by the end of August. I don't intend, like, the hope is that they're all negative. We really do not want to see a detection of these mussel larvae. But at the marinas would be kind of the first point of contact for boats that may be carrying them in some part of the boat or motor or whatever. And sampling later in July and August, the water temperature is actually warm enough for them to live and potentially grow and finish their life cycle and start reproducing. So that's the rationale behind that. And we'll probably continue on doing that next summer with them as well. We have funding from the Provincial Watershed Restoration and Resiliency Program to work with landowners of any sort, lakefront property owners, acreage owners, and agricultural landowners to do things on the ground that improve our watershed's resiliency. So resiliency to flood and drought, things like having healthy riparian areas, keeping wetlands on the landscape, getting, for the ag audience, getting cattle off these creeks and streams and putting together alternative watering systems. So we've also done a few workshops around that to share information about it. Our staff are pretty much committed to helping an interested person scope out what they are thinking about doing, build a project plan, build a budget. If there's other cost share opportunities, like there's a green acreage program grant, and there's a few other ones for ag landowners. So that is a program we currently have money for. I would like to do some sort of a lakeshore restoration project as like a demo site. If I just have to find an interested person that's keen to work on something like this. So that's kind of a goal for a lake project. Most of our projects have been on agricultural areas or acreages so far. So we do have money in that program till the end of 2023. So if any of you guys know somebody who might be interested, send them my way. And we have a lot of education and outreach programming going on this year. It was really nice to actually be back in the schools and taking classes out on field trips. We did a lot of online stuff during COVID, and I'm sure you guys, at the start it was okay, but everyone kind of got Zoomed and online meeting to death. And especially with kids, it's not the same as being outdoors with them and really engaging them. So we have Alyssa is our education outreach coordinator, and then Kate, and the two of them work with the Lesser Slave Forest Education Society. So we co-deliver field trips and classroom presentations. We share staff, rather than them driving to High Prairie for a classroom presentation, we'll do it. And then when they got field trips booked, we come in, we instruct we call it marsh monsters and the water quality and the spruce bog, anything water related. So that's been going on. We've been working with them for over 10 years. The one that's new this year that was exciting is our extreme science program. Yes, pun intended. And that's a bit of a more rigorous program than what we do with the elementary school kids. So it's like a most of the day field trip. They look at the creek site, the riparian area. They collect invertebrates, they quantify them. They talk about pollution tolerance index. All of our programs with the schools are linked to the curriculum so that it's really easy for the teachers to say, yes, sure, because it's checking off their boxes. And then this summer we had a 3-day summer camp in the Slave Lake area, kind of based out of the Boreal Center, but they went all over the place around the region. And we're going to do that again next year and hopefully also do one in High Prairie. The girls attended 4 community events this summer in Slave Lake and set up at either Devonshire Beach, Martin River, the boat launch, Canyon Creek, handing out resources like aquatic invasive species and lake stewardship type stuff. We sold a few rain barrels to people on the east side of the lake, whoever was traveling that way, threw a rain barrel in their vehicle if needed. And then we have 3 teachers in the Slave Lake schools who are participating in our Little Green Thumbs program, which is it's an indoor gardening program that links to lots of different curriculum points like math, art, English. The teachers can really kind of make it their own and incorporate it into as much or as little as they'd like. And that's provided at no cost. Plus they get our staff support. So that's been about, I think we're on year 6 or 7 of that program as well. Pretty popular. One new thing that we have going on, I think it was a board member idea, but we have live cameras that look at the lake. There's one in Widewater. That's the kind of the screenshot you're looking at. And then there's one in Jussard. So that's new. We've got all of our tech issues sorted out now. Rural internet's a problem. That's been the biggest challenge with these. So right now the cameras are live streaming with TELUS hubs. That was the best solution, but there's also the potential to interrupt the stream and have videos and like promotional things in there. So over the winter, the girls are working on that, and we're going to get some more diversity on our feed. It lives on YouTube. If you go to our YouTube page, or you can find it on the main page of our website. And if that's something you guys wanted to like embed into the website somewhere, we could just provide the permanent link, and then you could have like a little box or blurb somewhere about it. It's kind of interesting. People could check out the lake anytime. I did want to show you a highlight of the funding we've got from our municipalities across the watershed over the last 5 years. Obviously, you can see Big Lakes County is contributing pretty significantly, and that's through the Ag Service Board and project funding through the Ag Service Board environmental and resource management stream. And then the other municipalities are less, but also contributing. Haven't received support from the town of Slave Lake in a few years, so I didn't know if that was budgetary or because you guys don't see value in the work we do. But I did want to mention that showing that we do have support from our municipal partners it looks good to the other grantors we would be applying to money for. So sometimes you're not allowed to use provincial government dollars to use as matching, or there's a number of things, but I can leverage any kind of additional money into more grants, and then it shows diversity and stakeholder support. And over the last few years, I've actually been doing pretty good. Our level of support from the forest sector came through a bigger forest resource improvement program grant. And then after I got that, some of the local oil and gas companies started chipping in annually as well. So that's kind of nice to see. Everybody's differing amounts between like 2,500 to 10 grand a year kind of thing. And then I just wanted to throw it out there that we're open to working on things that you guys want to work on. So I'd be curious to know what sort of watershed related topics are of concern or interest to you guys. Some ideas would be things like riparian health assessments, whether it be on the lake, because there hasn't been a kind of a shoreline and habitat assessment done since 2005. And I think it lives on a VHS video somewhere, so it's not even really usable at this point. There's opportunity to plan like some creek bank restorations, depending on the scale. Obviously, Sawridge Creek does have some pretty serious erosion problems, and the funding and the programs that we have money from are more focused on things, you know, like bioengineering and natural solutions. I can't really, you know, spend $500,000 armoring the creek. I don't have $500,000. Invasive species awareness with residents and lake users. There's a number of different workshops we could pull together, either for town residents or for municipal council and staff. You know, bring in professionals or you know, people from different places around Alberta. I'm really quite open to ideas or partnering on things if they come up. That's kind of what WPACs are all about. So if I don't expect you to come up with things tonight, but put some thought into it. And if you guys have some interest in particular projects, we can talk about it over the winter and make some plans to get things going for next spring, hopefully. And then of course, we're on all the socials. I feel like I'm too old for social media now. I do our Facebook sometimes, but I do our LinkedIn, and then the girls do the rest of them. And then, you know, I had to throw the Watershed Wiener Dog in there. He's featured on our social media. He gets a lot of likes, and yeah, my contact information's there. And that is really brief update, because I know Councillor Gramlich is pretty, you know, sticky about timelines. So I think I kept it to my allotted time.
Well, he's got you prepped, and I appreciate that. Megan, thanks for the presentation. You know, you definitely highlight a lack of financial support from the town of Slave Lake, and I hear that loud and clear. You know, I think it's something for us, honestly, like the amount of requests that we deal with at budget time is immense, and every year, you know, it's one of how do we balance those priorities and where do we spend our money? And so, you know, the amount of requests have exceeded what we can financially do, or at least we have the political will to raise taxes to accomplish. This year is no exception. And, you know, I say that every year, and but inflation's killing us this year. And in the past couple of years, we've been really cognizant of COVID and trying to lessen the impact to taxpayers. But I hear your words loud and clear, and we will consider it a budget. We're going through that right now, and we're far from done.
I should say, last year, the town of Slave Lake water treatment plant guys were partnering with us, and they put in their time to go collect samples at the Lesser Slave River for us for the whole season. And that is quantified in my water quality project budget. But things like that, like the in-kind support, we track all of that too. So things like that, you know, if I wanted the Legacy Center for an event, if, you know, you waive the fee, we count that as support because it's a cost we don't have to incur. So things like that, they go a long way too. I mean, yeah, our office lease is up for renewal and inflation. So our rent's going up and cost of everything's going up too. So I get where you guys are at. So we can work together on things that matter to town residents and you guys project wise, and just continue to communicate and stay engaged with each other over watershed related things. And Steve and Sean are more in the know than you guys. So if there's any information you need, just reach out to me and I can pull together packages. Next time I'm in town, I do have I have some little information packages for you, and our new calendar hot off the press. Watershed pictures that people on social media sent in, just something fun we do.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Megan? As I see none, we'll move into our next delegation. Thanks, Megan. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys. See you in person soon.
Okay. So next in our packages, we have a delegation from the RCMP and Sergeant Casey Bruins. If you want to come, yeah, totally. And try to use the mic as much as you can so that people at home don't miss any tantalizing details that you're going to share.
Well, I'm more here to answer questions. I just sent in our Q2 report to Mr. Mayor here. And just to sum it up, we are fully staffed, which is a rarity in our district nowadays. Our 13 municipal positions, our 4 provincial positions are all full. We have a new recruit coming next week from Depot. So he should be here.
Which is one of those positions?
No, he's replacing someone that's leaving in January. So we're actually be +1 for a couple of months here.
Okay.
So our spots are full. Our GI plainclothes unit has been pretty active lately. They're both full. We've done some search warrants recently in town. I'm going to start trying to do more news releases because I think it's important for everyone to know that. I did for the one we did a couple of weeks ago. We worked in partnership with the Alberta Sheriffs for the one house we shut down last week, I believe it was. We're working on 1 or 2 others in the next, hopefully, months. Those kind of projects do take time though. So especially with those in large scale investigations, they just take time. So we're working on that. In terms of just generic files for the year, property crime is up as it is across the entire district and province. We're about on par with other areas. It was a very busy summer. Our guys are out doing a lot of traffic enforcement. Our numbers are up, I think, 80% over last year for that end. Having said that, these are numbers comparing to 2021, when a lot of people were still at home due to COVID. So I'm not sure how that'll pan out. Maybe in the next year, we'll see. But we're on pretty par with everywhere else in our district. We're one of the lower detachments in terms of I don't believe this was in the report that was sent to you guys, but just in terms of persons crimes and property crimes are one of the lowest severity detachments in Eastern Alberta district, both on the municipal end and the provincial end.
Repeat that. Sorry, we're the lowest for numbers of
One of the lowest, 3rd lowest for provincial and 2nd lowest for municipal. So, and that's
personal crimes.
In our district.
in Eastern Alberta district. Yeah, there's 26 provincial detachments. We have 1, and there's 9 municipal ones. So we're either 24th out of 26 or 7th of 9th. And that's just on average over the last couple of years.
And so to clarify, those are property crimes for personal. So that
Both. It's ranked. We're 23rd for
Yeah.
property crimes and 23rd for persons crimes. So that
person's crimes, like what is it for the average person? What's a person's crime?
robbery, sexual assaults, uttering threats, those type of
Numbers
files.
are significantly down. Okay. But property theft in commercial industrial, though, you said is up.
Yes,
Okay.
over 2021 it is, yes.
Okay, so we're seeing a rise in commercial and industrial property theft, which is
As is,
on par with the rest of Alberta. But our personal crime theft and has significantly dropped, or we're one of the lower numbers in our district.
we're one of the lower numbers in our
Okay.
district, yeah.
Those are good stats to know. For Casey, keep going.
Yeah, no worries. Some of our priorities have been property theft, as well as police visibility, as well as prolific offenders. So those are the 3 areas that we've been targeting. I know on a daily basis, I get reports of where my members are out throughout the night doing our industrial patrols, that kind of thing, and times. So I see it every day, and I get mad if I don't see one, but there's usually 5 to 10 every night that I get documented of. So we're on track for that. Police visibility is also huge. I don't know, we've gotten I've gotten some people to come up and approach me about us being in school zones. We try to get out there as much as we can. I've heard, like I said, some people comment to me, they've seen us out there, so that's good. In terms of other visibility, it's in our rural areas and not so much in the municipal end. We try to get down to our rural areas as much as possible, but for the most part, we have a lot of more members in town. So
Okay,
overall, yeah, I know I just sent the report last week, but if you have any questions based on that, let me know and I can see if I can answer for you.
okay. I have a few questions and comments, but I'll open it up to council first there to add anything if they want.
And then just one other thing to mention, we do have a town hall scheduled for next week, so.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna lead with there. So the two of us are doing a thing next week and so in the past, we've done like a Facebook Live thing where people can ask for comments ahead of time when there should be some media coming out from the town of Slave Lake. If it hasn't happened already, asking for requests. So we take questions ahead of time. We also take questions live, but this one we also opened up to the public. So there's people that want to come down and ask some questions or hear what I have to say, they're more than welcome. So that happens next week. You know, it is frustrating, obviously, to hear that property crime continues to be an area that is frustrating for a lot of businesses, you know, crawling out of COVID and trying to get back on track and things happening. And then obviously economy and things are busy over here and having to protect your back door to make sure things are looked after as a constant revolving cost that, you know, businesses just have a hard time absorbing. And so I appreciate that you guys are doing some work in the industrial areas and continue to put some time out there. You know, we've heard time and time again, and, you know, this is a good reminder to the public that when stuff happens, please report it. Stuff that doesn't seem right, report it. Stuff that piques your interest and you're like, something's doesn't seem quite the right way there, please report it. And you know, I wake up the next morning, I'm missing a bike, I'm missing a gas can, I'm missing a can of spray paint off the deck or whatever else it is. And you think, who cares? That information helps for the RCMP to build where we're spending our time, when we're spending our time there. And so I encourage residents to keep providing that information, especially in industrial, because that's where we've got some of our issues happening, or we get traffic that doesn't seem right. You know, you guys are building your schedules around that, and we want to make sure that then we're targeting those areas.
Even in the residential area, I know I've had people just approach me off duty and say there was this weird guy in my backyard last night. Well, call us. We want to come. We want that stat. We need to mark that. We want to try to identify the person. Don't just tell them to leave.
Totally.
Yeah, we can see, that may assist us with other investigations too.
I'm curious there, you know, one of your officers that come previously a couple of years ago talked about Project Capture. And so we've been promoting some of that or whatever else. I'm curious to know what kind of buy-in you're getting on that and if you've actually even used it.
I think it was Constable DeRizio who was the one that was setting that up. I know we've used it for a few files in the past. I've seen it on the town billboard there myself. But we will check there to see, you know, what cameras we have available. We're still going to usually canvass the area as much as we can anyway for video footage, but we do have a lot of assistance from some of our partners for video on a lot of our files. And that's honestly where we get a lot of our court charges from, is when we use video. So we encourage everyone to continue using that.
So a reminder to anyone listening out in virtual land there, Project Capture ideally is a real easy program for you as a resident to get signed up for. So a lot of people have their own security systems, their own camera systems, their own doorbell cameras, and so on and so forth. The idea is you register with the RCMP. The RCMP doesn't have access to that information. The RCMP can't take anything from there. It's more like, hey, just FYI, I have a camera in this area, so that when something does pop up in that area, RCMP then reaches out to you and says, hey, do you have any footage of XYZ from this time? Can we get access to it? You have the ability to say no. But it's all about eyes and ears. And if we want to make a difference in our community, it is about more eyes and more ears all the time. So knowing that we have technology already doing it for us and all it is a few clicks of a button, I encourage residents to sign up with Project Capture and use that because the more people that get, you know, punished for the crimes that they commit, the less stuff we're going to see. I am curious what you're seeing in the drug world, Casey, there. If you're seeing more movement of stuff, less movement of stuff, what kind of drugs you're seeing the most of? What does that world look like to people that don't spend time in that world?
Well, a lot of places we've executed search warrants lately have been people that are in that subculture. So when we try to go after those kinds of residents, it's also going to impact people that are using controlled substances or selling them. So we just charged that person with trafficking 2 weeks ago in relation to that search warrant. So every little bit helps. I know our plainclothes section has several open investigations today that they're working on. So there hopefully will be some additional ones like that coming up in the future. And the one from a few weeks ago is still before the courts and probably will be for some time. But yeah, we're out there looking for that. I know a lot of our members that are out at night, just for instance, running into anyone that is in a spot where they shouldn't be, we document that and they can use that information for search warrants, things like that. So we are out there and we do have open investigations.
Yeah, lastly, I'd like to, it's an opportunity to highlight SCAN and the work that they do. So, we had a problem property that was shut down here last year, and thankfully it changed hands, and so that you've seen a significant change in that neighborhood there. Recently you guys did another one, and it's great to hear you have more on the go. Just a reminder for people out there that SCAN is basically an independent, it's not the RCMP, it's an independent group that kind of works in collaboration with the RCMP, but a lot of their stuff is fed from the neighborhood. It's from people giving feedback all the time. And so I encourage residents to take advantage of that because you can see it's working in your own community, and none of that would have happened without the feedback from residents. So encourage, eyes and ears, send information. It takes all of us to keep the community safe.
And in relation to that, they have to start their files with a tip from the public. So that is extremely important. You can just Google Alberta Scan Unit and you can file a report there yourself. Then they'll come to us and we'll partner up at some point. But we can't just contact them. That's something the people in town have to do themselves.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks, Casey. We'll jump into CAO update.
All right, thank you. So before you should have,
So before we get too far here, so because I'm trying to be technological savvy here tonight there. So CAO update, I just go back in my agenda thing and then I can find it, or what? Oh, it's in there now. Oh, okay. A minute ago it wasn't. Is that what the update was that you were talking about at the beginning? No. Okay, I'm learning. Okay, I got it. Never mind. Keep going.
all right. So you have a copy of the report in front of you. I'm just going to highlight a few key points and then open to questions for whatever you may have. From our Human Resources Department, corporate training has begun, including some supervisory training for some of our frontline supervisors and managers. That was held at the end of August or end of October with some future dates coming. In terms of recruitment, our new peace officer actually started today, I believe. So today was her first day back from training. And we've extended a temporary or a verbal offer has been extended and I believe accepted for our manager of facilities and parks. We still have a number of positions currently posted and available on our website and a few still to come. From our finance department, third quarter GST rebate has been filed, expected refunds about 216,000. 2023 business license renewals are being worked on by the department and should be mailed out by the end of November. There's been 7 new business licenses issued within the past month. And that's kind of the highlights for finance. Operations, our utilities branch still continues to conduct winter site prep and cleanup. They're brushing the backwash pond and conducting year-end inventory. And Public Works is gearing up for the light white snowy stuff that we have as of this last week. So they're out sanding roads, maintaining or starting to hang our Christmas tree lights downtown and decorations and prepping equipment for more of the white stuff to come. In terms of projects, you have a number of them that are before you there. Some of them have already been presented. Some of the highlights, the new spray park, all the spray pieces of equipment are installed and winterized. So the remaining porting of the landscaping, including site furniture, will be in the early spring. Downtown revitalization, one of the last steps on the west side where lights were installed last week. So we have some orientation set up and some tweaking that still needs to be done. But essentially they're LED lights that are capable of changing colors and being programmed and could be potentially used to highlight different weeks or acknowledging different events that are happening in town. Third Street road rehab project had wrapped up phase 1. So the street's open to regular traffic use now. Sidewalk rehabilitation program was complete in the third last week in October. The fire hall just recently finally got onto high-speed internet, so their TELUS tie-ins were just complete. And that's from projects. From the fire department, year-to-date calls for service are 439, with 47 of them coming in October. Number of alarms, medical co-responses, collisions are typically the majority of. Fire services also also hosted 4 open houses for Fire Prevention Week. One in Widewater, Slave Lake, Smith, and Flatbush. They had a significant turnout in all of those, so it was a success for the department. From community services, as I had said, we filled the position for our second peace officer, first day being today. Our aquatics department's in full swing with the pool back open after our normal winter or fall sort of shutdown. So morning lessons, weekday lessons have all commenced, and as well as the schools are starting to utilize for some of their gym classes. From facilities and parks, construction started on the repair of the east wall in the town office building with staff that are affected being temporarily relocated during construction. And we just received our janitorial contract had closed. And so those submissions are being evaluated and will be brought back to council for future reporting. From FCSS, a number of highlights there regarding to different programs that they've been participating in over the last month or so. Highlight youth events in Slave Lake hosted a Halloween party on October 21st. At the Curling Club, 20 youth attended. Local partnerships included Carlos Restaurant at Sweet Tooth Slave Lake. And they received recently a $500 donation from Plains Midstream Canada for an Anger Ed adult program. In terms of recreation and programming, the department's still continuing to work on some new programs for the year with the return of our program coordinator. Currently, they're looking for sponsorship for our holiday skates and senior winter walking program. And that is the update that I have for you right now. Open to questions.
Questions from council? Holy God, we're a lively group tonight. Okay.
Together all day yesterday.
We're just together all day, yeah. You know, I had a thing from resident and I sent it to you before, and it's about frustration with drop off at Roland Michener. And so long story short, the residents worked up around the fact that you know, it is very difficult to get back onto 6th Ave after during school times and get out there, and wondering what other options we have. Additionally, that has now been compounded by the fact that, of course, that in-town busing has been suspended and they're seeing even more traffic. And so I'd sent that to you a couple of weeks ago, but I know it really hasn't gone anywhere. So I'm curious to know if it's something maybe we can talk to High Prairie School Division and get our own operations people having a conversation to say, is there something that we could tweak there to make it a little bit easier? And if we can't, we can't, but at least have the conversation and see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it could be totally could be a conversation. Anything that would involve potential redesign or an assessment of that intersection or any of those kind of along that road, you know, could be done, or you know, a traffic study could help assist in providing some more clarity in terms of usage, time of day, where the problem is and what some potential solutions are. The problem is, you know, the quick response is, well, let's, you know, put up 3-way stops or you know, stopping east and westbound traffic on 6, which the primary problem coming out of Roland Michener is vehicles wanting to turn east onto 6 there. And so the stop sign would create that, but it would actually more than likely back up traffic substantially further down both directions. So
Turn west, but I totally get what you're talking about.
correct, yeah.
The
From first place is having a 3-way stop put in.
Yeah. So I would be, you know, instead of having a quick knee-jerk reaction, I would.
not looking for a knee jerk reaction, more of a, can we have some conversation with a few people and see if what options could come forward? So
Yeah, there's nothing stopping us from having those conversations. And I think they would admit that there's a traffic bottleneck that's happening at that intersection, especially traffic trying to head west or east, sorry.
west,
Well, west is the west is the easy turn. It's the east one that's coming across traffic and turning to the left out of Roland Michener. That's the problem. Correct. Yeah.
And half the time you can't turn right because the line's too long. You can't get
Yeah.
into it anyway.
That's backing up. That's right.
Short of us dropping a ton of money, bringing traffic.
Yeah.
Well, see what other things there are. Maybe we could divert some
Some traffic lights, stop signs and traffic circles are your typical three options on an intersection when you have over increased volume that you can't control.
Or we try and divert some of the volume somewhere else. You could send them through Springwood out on the emergency thing. Anyways, I'd like to look at the options and see what are there. So I'd like to make a motion that we task administration to reach out to High Park School Division about possible options with congestion at Sixth Ave and Seventh Street Southeast. Good enough? Well, I think we should loop in the school there and get some feedback on whatever. Bring them as part of the conversation. I'm not going to say High Prairie School Division, which we do. But more have them as part of a conversation. Our engineers as part of the conversation, our admin team will figure. Let's at least look at there and see what some options are and some costs associated with it. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Any other questions for CEO updates? As I see none. Okay, we'll jump into the management task list on page 23 in our package. Any highlights that you want to point out, Mr. Simpson?
No, just a number of, some have updates, some have reports coming back to council here in the next month here or so, I believe. Some were scheduled to come back in November, but just weren't able to put those together. So they'll be more than likely on the December committee of the whole package coming forward. I can speak to any of these if you have
Okay.
any exact questions.
Any questions from council? As I see none, motion to accept the management task list as information. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so we'll jump into committee minutes. So intermunicipal committee met, I want to say it was last week. Big topics were around, there are some small little changes that the MD pushed back on in regards to intermunicipal and power services agreement. But they weren't anything substantial. It was more grammar wordings than anything else. One of the items in there is that eventually we want to have a water agreement between the town and the MD. And so we've been talking about this for the last couple of years. The MD's kind of taken the lead on drafting that. I know since then administrations got together and are trying to move that piece forward. So they wanted to take some of those pieces on water and sewer out that are in the intermunicipal agreement. But we basically said that doesn't really make sense until we have a new agreement. And so we added some wording that in the event that a new agreement did come forward, that those things would be omitted. And so no real substantial changes that came there, but they were basically taking it back to their group and theoretically going for approval. And with any luck, we'll have those signed off soon, that expire at the end of the year. So that is progress. Other big topics, they had a invited guest there, former MLA Danielle Larrabee was there and shared some of the frustrations and advocacy pieces that we're working on. So big thing that came up was around transportation and resource revenues that come into the area. So there's a lot in revenue that comes out. And the province keeps waving the flag about all the extra money that they're making, and a big chunk of it comes from this region. So our pushback from both councils, and it was good to have that discussion because their council is going to RMA this week, which would be our AUMA was meeting with a number of ministers, was around the fact that happy to see you get some extra revenue for Alberta taxpayers, but there's an expense that's generated with that and takes a toll on our hospitals and our highways and our roads and our bridges and our culverts, and could you please reinvest some of that back? They talked a bit about the Smith Bridge again. We talked about our frustration in healthcare around the lack of nursing staff, and did get another note again today that I shared with council around We continue to have 6 beds closed, acute care beds. So typically we would have be able to do 24. We're only running 18 on an ongoing basis. But we're having an issue immensely in nursing when it comes to keeping our obstetrics program going and keeping surgeries going. And so effectively immediately for the next 6 weeks, it looks like any babies that need to be born in Slave Lake are headed somewhere else, which is quite frustrating, but also understand there's only so much we can do around staffing. There was some positive news that there's potentially some new candidates coming in the nursing field. But definitely we've been talking for the last couple of weeks about the stress of that. And that's pushing back. I'm stealing some of your health updates, so I'll shut up and move on. The other big thing that was coming out of it is the pinch, and the MD was even a champion of it this time. Councillor Pearson talking about we need to figure out something with industrial land. And so things are busy, and we've got contractors that are interested in doing work in this area. But if you want to shop or you want to build a shop, we don't got much for options for you, if any. And so I know that our own planning department there, Lori's dusting off some information there that both councils will be looking at here next month. Comes at our December committee of the whole meeting, and subsequently we've booked the next intermunicipal for the day after to go through it with the MD as well, and kind of say, here's a potential thing that we looked at in the past. What are some other options? We need to move something forward. It's one of those things that realistically, there's no way we're going to bring on land fast enough to meet the current demand. The big question will be, will the demand still be there when we do bring land on? But what is very obvious is right now we have zero capacity left in the system. And so as a community, if you ever want to have growth, you eventually have to bring something here. So, major shift from 3 years ago in COVID, and we thought we were all going to be bundled up and doing nothing for 5 years, to a point where we can't even find anything to do all the stuff that's happening. It's a train that definitely slows down and speeds up very quickly. And we're just trying to figure out how to manage that as a community. I would say that would be the bulk of our discussions at intermunicipal. Any questions, comments? Watershed.
I have not met.
Chamber.
We went today. We're gearing up for Moonlight Madness, November 25th and 26th. The 25th, the Friday night, is the traditional parade with the Santa sleigh theme. The Fix will also be hosting a gingerbread competition, which will be a gingerbread house competition, which they'll be releasing details on shortly. The annual window decorating contest for businesses will also be in place. Judging will be taken a couple days before the parade, and then the winners will light up the tree on Main Street. That week that weekend, there is also the All Seasons Market Craft Fair. We're also assisting with November 30th. There is the State of the Lake event with details to be released shortly. Other than that, we are moving forward. We're still recruiting for board members and hoping to do a membership drive in the new year. And then we have secured our weekend of July 6th to 9th for Riverboat Days next year.
Okay, questions, comments? As I see none, Alberta North Central Alliance. So ANSA, Alberta North Central Alliance, met last week. And so we have secured a grant in the past. I've talked about this around approximately $200,000 for some collaboration amongst the what started as 5 municipalities and 5 First Nations. Capuino has stepped away, but there's still 5 municipalities and 4 First Nations as membership in that group. We are making some slight modification to terms in our bylaws, and so we're going to bring that back here to a future meeting, 15th, for discussion next week. But the big thing is that we had a contractor that did a bunch of work behind the scenes to gather a bunch of information over the summer, and we met to kind of go through that and basically start working on a strategic plan. What was obvious is there's a lot of common things between the entire group. Housing, economy, tourism, advocacy, highways and infrastructure, education, a lot of things we had in common. And so working together to kind of fix some things that need fixing, but also definitely a willingness from the group to partner on some things moving forward that would be new and innovative and see how that fits together. So rough draft of that strategic plan coming together, and share a draft here in a subsequent meeting coming up. And we did set another meeting for actually next month in December. So excited to see a little bit of traction going on there. And 8 out of 9 entities were represented at the strategic planning. So it was great. Any questions, comments? Okay, housing.
Okay, so housing status quo, pretty much. There's a few lodge and affordable vacancies. Lots of units being worked on. It's always a struggle on keeping units that are in need of repair and renovations in circulation. Also working on the budget. Finance committee met. So as this budget is pretty difficult, and the MD, Brad Pearson, had definitely had the same sentiment that their budget is coming up is going to be very difficult too. So both of us really pushed for status quo and no increase to the requisition. So it does not affect the overall tax bill for the resident. We really pushed for that, so.
Okay. Questions, comments? As I see none, health.
Covered most of the health update that I had. We are under extreme nursing shortages in acute care. As Mayor Warman mentioned, we have 6 beds closed until further notice, with only 18 beds open in acute and emergency. Obstetrical services are on disruption until November 21st. So unless it's unsafe to do so, all laboring mothers will be transported to facilities that can accommodate. We did actually receive for the first time in a year 2 RN applications. So we are hopeful that they'll be joining our team and relocating soon. And just a side note that for our hospital and clinic, we're looking at a patient panel of 12,000. Our community has about 7,000, and not all of them seek services here. So just know more with regards to missed appointments. Any appointment you miss or don't contact the hospital or the clinic to cancel, you're affecting the care of your neighbors and your family. So just a heads up, if you are going to miss your appointment at the clinic, you can't make it, please cancel it. Those missed appointments are taking up time that we just don't have for our practitioners and our staff there.
Questions, comments? Councillor Hughes.
Sorry, I don't know if I missed it. What is the current wait time right now? Did you touch on that?
I had covered that the last time, but the current wait time is 25 to 30 days to see a practitioner.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, do you guys attribute any like specific changes you made to finally getting 2 of the RNs apply here? Like any particular reason?
We absolutely take.
We will take full responsibility for this. The email had just come out in the past couple of days, so I haven't had a chance to
Okay,
speak to
not
the
sure
clinic
yet.
manager.
I'd just be
as to-
curious to know.
A lot of it,
I think they said there was a new clothing store on Main Street. Driving traffic.
Is that what it is? All right.
the wonderful spirit in our community that has attracted these practitioners here. We haven't, like I said, we haven't spoken to the clinic manager yet, but we have a meeting in a couple weeks and we'll figure out hopefully why and maybe what we're doing that's working.
It might have been the date change of riverboat days.
It might have been the yeah, the Moonlight Madness date shift to the Black Friday weekend really got people.
So many opportunities.
We have 2 parades a year, you know.
Tourism.
Perfect. Okay, so today was a very exciting day for the tourism committee. We have officially hired a new tourism coordinator.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, very exciting. So she will be kind of a part-time casual. So she will be located at the Visitor Information Center in one of the offices. And she, right now, just to get started, she'll be working Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8:30 to 11:30 with designated office time. Otherwise, she will be out in the community assisting with events and things like that as we move forward. So we just want to congratulate Shauna Fiddler. She is our new hire at tourism. So a couple other things, we'll be onboarding her next week and getting her going. She's going to be hitting the ground running with a lot of different things such as website updates, visiting businesses, just a lot of the basic things that kind of need updating within our organization and a lot of administrative tasks. As of right now, our group is still waiting to hear back on one of our applications for funding that we just put in. We are working on some ID ideas and a subcommittee for an all-in winter event to be held in February. We also have an AGM coming up here on November 24th. It will actually be in council chambers from 7 to 9 o'clock. We are looking for board members as well as any interested members of the community, residents with a passion for tourism, ideas. They don't have to sit on the board. If they simply have a passion for it and want to come and see what we're doing or volunteer in some way at a future event, that is more than welcome, and we'd love to have them. We will also be doing strategic planning as well with local community futures. And we also are tentatively planning our date for a Beach Fest celebration to be on August 12th. So we'll be bringing back the sand sculpture competition, but we'll be combining that with a couple other things. We would like to have food trucks on the beach area, maybe a beach volleyball, sort of an extension of the Sands Castle competition, but just making it more of a all weekend thing, paddleboard races, those types of things. So really using our beautiful beach there as much as we can. So that's an update from tourism.
Questions, comments? You guys always throw me off when you hit the button. Okay, tourism library.
We have not met at a regular meeting yet, but we did have the budget committee meet. Discussed various challenges and issues that they're having. Surprisingly, they're exactly the same as our challenges. It seems to coincide with everybody. There is a regular board meeting tomorrow, and I'll have a better update next time.
Okay. Can't imagine there's any questions on that one, so let's jump to naming advisory.
Have not met.
Community futures.
A couple updates at the last meeting are their regular loan applications are coming in more steadily now, which is a very positive thing to see coming from for the community, reaching out for more loans. Also, the CF has launched the Capital Growth Initiative Loan Program, which is the one for offers loans to women who wish to start, grow, or expand their business. There's actually 25% forgivable portion for this, which is fantastic. The beautification loans are continuing, as we know from our last approval. Their digital service squad is being utilized by our region well. They've now served 80 businesses and are looking to hit a goal of 108 by March. They've relaunched LeaderCast for Women, so that's on November 10th, and I think you can still buy tickets for that, actually. Very good program. I would suggest people take part in that. Head Start in Business, the K-12 entrepreneur training and school has launched. They're actually looking to start, or they're starting a hot chocolate day similar to the lemonade day. And it should be ready to launch for the Black Friday this fall. And that's about all I have for updates on that one. Thank you.
I got a couple questions actually on that. So first
I didn't
off,
ask for questions.
I did that. So you said there's a group that qualifies for 25% forgivable loan?
Yes, there's a women's, hang on, let me grab my notes here. So women who wish to start, grow, or expand their business. Loan includes interest-only payments for the first 6 months, low interest rates, and a 25% forgivable portion if 75% of the principal is paid within the term of the loan.
Very good.
Yeah.
No kidding.
So right now they are oversubscribed on that one because they put a word out good. So it's nice to see that money being spent in our community.
So people are
That
signing
being-
up, so that's great.
But that being said, there's other communities where this sign up has not occurred as well as here. So fingers crossed, we may be getting some of that money into our area. So,
Amazing.
yep. It's great to see.
On another note, I'm curious to know what's going on with the whole downtown one with the interest-free loans and.
Well, we just put that one forward. We approved the change in our permitting. So I imagine that's just getting started.
Okay, so we're actually like ready to rock on that thing?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Because they're teamed up with Town of Slave Lake, County of Big Lakes, MD of Opportunity, and they're moving along. We have worked with communities to iron out the issues regarding development permits, which and the program will be starting in November.
I look forward to
It's
some
picking up.
promotion and oversubscription of that as well.
I hope so. It'd be nice to see. I understand they're not big, but they can make small steps can make a big impact in a small community.
Up to
So,
20,000, right?
yes,
Up to 20,000.
Up to
Yeah.
20,000.
I believe so, yeah.
Community Education Committee.
All right, I went to this one. We don't need to get into that. So all we discussed in this one was they nominated Joy McGregor to be the chair of the board.
Okay.
Also had discussions revolving around budget. It didn't come to finalized conclusion, just lots of discussion, and that's going to continue on for the next meeting. And that's and we had discussions regarding the overall goal of the CEC and what programs it can do to impact and what style it should reflect. So there's lots of good discussion around that. And next meeting should be even better and more exciting for Frankie.
Thanks for attending that, Steve.
Homelessness Coalition.
So lots of activity lately. The Homeless Coalition held a public open house 2 weeks ago. It was well attended, lots of questions, information, and feedback shared. Another open house is scheduled for November 29th at 7 p.m. As most are probably aware, there was an appeal heard last week regarding the location of the temporary MAT program. Ultimately, the members of the appeal board denied the appeal, which means the MAT program is finally able to go ahead. Trailers have been moved on site. They are in the process of being hooked up and should be ready sometime next week. In light of the inclement weather the last few days, the Friendship Center has graciously agreed to allow use of their space for a few days until the trailers are up and running. And some really big news here, the coalition received notification that we are approved for a grant for this winter season in the amount of $368,000 from the province of Alberta. This will help provide stability for this operating season. The coalition would like to extend their thanks to the town of Slave Lake. The coalition recognizes that mayor, council, and administration has advocated extensively for provincial funding for homelessness in our community. And so it is nice to see the province stepping up to the plate and providing some much needed funding for the coalition. The coalition also recognizes that grant funding can change from year to year, and they've been working on getting a fundraising committee formed and have been contacting various stakeholders for donations. For this winter season, we have received approximately $25,000 in cash donations, as well as thousands of dollars of in-kind donations. These donations, along with past donations, are much appreciated, and without them, we would not have been able to operate last year or this year. Lastly, the coalition is always looking for volunteers, so if you're interested in getting involved, please reach out.
Okay. Children's Resource Council, that's me. And so we had a meeting about some legal stuff last week that required us to go back to the lawyers and ask some more questions. Additionally to that, we were supposed to have a meeting on Monday night, but apparently there was a number of board members that were sick, so they canceled. I've been meeting with Darcy there, who's also one of board members and our representative from Slave Lake area. I've been sending lots of emails going through budgets. Apparently this group has, believe it or not, 9 separate budgets for different items. So trying to go through those and try and figure out what those all mean from one program to the next. Because stuff gets, traded between different budgets, trying to figure all those pieces out and just how the board makeup goes. That's an interesting committee, to say the least. Hopefully I'll have some more information. Our next board meeting's at the end of the month. MPC.
We approved a new business on Main Street in the Distractions building, and we approved 18 cabins at Big Fish Bay.
Okay. Intermunicipal subdivision appeal. So obviously I was not at the last meeting, but the last meeting was the most lively one that those board members had ever experienced. And so actually to a point, it's great to have a rural regional board, but then we had 2 members that sat on there that there was a question about conflict of interest. And so we ended up having to deal with the legal and a bunch of things on that in that piece. And so conflict of interest is typically and largely built around the fact that you have a pecuniary interest, pecuniary meaning that you actually financially gain by decision one way or another, which doesn't really happen in this circumstance, but there is also the political optics of things that go on there. And so had a lot of feedback, I understand, from both sides, and it was one of the longest hearings that we've had in the last number of years. We ended up having to get another board member to come from outside of the community to make it work. And so all three board members that did hear that hearing were not from Slave Lake, which I think gave it a unique opportunity to have a non-biased and be very open and neutral to hearing those. To hearing that. That being said, you know, comes up in my mayor's update, but man, I had some lively people contact me on both sides of that experience there that had many opinions to offer on which way it did go, which way it should have went, or which way, and whether they were happy or not happy with how things turned out. So my encouragement to the Homeless Coalition is that there are a lot of people that support you, but there are a lot of people that are worried about what how that operation is going to affect their neighborhoods and their backyards and their businesses. And so attention to detail there and continuing to work with the surrounding neighbors, I think will be key to success of seeing that program continue in years to come. Waste.
We have not met
Airport.
and have not met.
Legacy hasn't met, but behind the scenes there are seeing some bookings coming in, which is fantastic. On the other side, we are desperately trying to get our space upstairs rented out. And so we've had a couple of different people approach us and organizations on that. So hoping to move some stuff forward there. I don't really have much else to add at the moment. Protective services. Northern Alberta Mayors and Reeds Caucus didn't meet. Northern Alberta elected leaders met last Friday, but I was unable to attend, and neither were other members of council. As we were touring a land developer, which I will get into here in a little bit. So let's jump into reports and motion to accept the verbal reports as information. Councillor Ward, I always forget to look right. So I know there was 3 hands went up left, but maybe right was first. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So let's jump into reports and new business. So we've got the downtown Main Street action plan, page 33 in our package. My understanding is, Mr. Simpson, you are leading us through this.
I am going to try. So I'm hopeful that you've previewed the report that's before you, but I will go through some of the highlights.
Okay.
So yeah, unfortunately, the Director of Planning and Development was unable to attend tonight, but as requested, she is presenting before you tonight and looking for input from council as it relates to the 2023 priorities in regards to downtown and Main Street area plan. The purpose of the report is to consider those projects for the next upcoming year. On October 10th, 2017, the downtown and Main Street area plan and the urban design handbook were adopted by council. The consultants also included an action plan as a part of the downtown plan, which outlines projects and initiatives to move the plan forward. Annually, administration prepares a report to council where council may select the projects it wishes to pursue in the upcoming year. This report is being presented to council to select the 2023 priorities for the action plan. And essentially, the planning department is asking for council to choose and indicate from the list of actions that councils would like to undertake listed below. The priorities are broken into 6 different categories, and we provided year 1 and year 2 priorities listed in each category, as well as a brief explanation when required. Do you want me to go through each and every one of these, or has council had enough time to review and provide input?
Yeah, I think they're listed there. So to read them out verbatim here out of 6 pages probably doesn't make sense. So the idea is that these are the things that are going on with the downtown plan. So we did the downtown plan back, I want to say off my head, and what's that? 2017, okay. And so you can see here that we've got some work done in a number of these areas. And the idea is you know, administration and, you know, part of our budget discussion is around where do we want to tackle next. So it looks like the ones outstanding or some viabilities of urban campgrounds, some tax incentive and exemption programs. Downtown banners, art poles was one of the things that was there. So linear parks along Main Street and definitely on the south portion. I know was one of the ones that were talked about. We got some entrance features. On a variety of the construction ones are actually already happening, and some of the land use pieces and special event pieces are already happening as well. So, it's one of those things too. Forget how much is going on there, and it's good opportunity to look at these pieces and say, hey, we actually got more done here than I thought we did. But questions, comments from council and thoughts? I'll go first. Linear parks, I think, would be great to add some ambience to go to the downtown and really try and blend together those pieces. The only negative on them is parks are not cheap to build and they're not cheap to maintain. And so I would recommend it's one of the later pieces that we look at. We are doing some work with signage and with our new logo, and some of those pieces are coming as part of capital. But there are no pieces that talk about like downtown entrance that really point you to downtown. And so as part of our discussion during capital budget, I know that there's a consideration for some money for some signs for in there, that maybe that's a piece that we should add in there and look at that. We're not looking for some big prominent pieces. It could be just some simple additions there, but I think we should take a good hard look at some additional signage for downtown pieces as we go along as part of the money that we're already spending on signage. The other one is that there are a number of communities that you look at, and we do have some of the artwork up there with some of our the metal facade pieces there with a different nature theme that's on a number of the poles. But I think when you go to a lot of communities that do have a vibrant downtown, or especially from a tourism perspective, there's a lot more of the banner type things going on that really add some color, give some description of what's happening, talk about events. There's a lot of pop that goes on, I think, with that. And especially because we are trying to do more in that tourism front. And, we spent a bunch of money here trying to get events and things happening downtown. And I think that it's worth us looking at that in the future, whether it be the 2023 or the 2024 budget, but considering something there and in adding something there, I think would be beneficial, and we could get some good return on that investment. Obviously, the other big piece is, the big chunk of money that's going to come next year, whether we decide or not, is doing the east side portion of downtown along the Rennie Hall Plaza area. And so tying that all together, we can't sell the short that even if we do nothing else on this downtown plan, that's $1 million investment down there. That goes a long way to showing that we're committed to supporting and growing downtown. It's kind of my overall thoughts and all I wanted to add. Other questions, comments? Things that we're missing? Councillor Hughes.
So there was a note in here about the High Prairie School Division saying that they're not interested in partnering with the town to develop that north expansion, the E.G. Wallstrom area there. But they have, however, indicated that they would support a lease for passive recreation uses in this area subject to an agreement. Just wondering if I could have a little more history, or what does that actually mean? What are they willing to do? Because that area kind of makes me curious. It just feels like now we've extended there, and I'd love to see something almost go on there. Don't know what that looks like, but I'm curious when I see them say they might be open to something.
Let me take it away. Essentially what's happened there is that there's some discussion in the past about trying to access or even get that land. That's basically on the east side portion, be the west side of Main Street, but the east side portion of the E.G. Wallstrom School site there, where you've got that green space. So we're going from, businesses or Legion and all this stuff, there's just dead space, and then it goes from there. The school, for a variety of reasons, and I don't blame them, they don't want to give up land. You never know what the future is going to hold. And so to give up stuff that they may need for future expansion plans just doesn't make sense to them. That being said, it's also not in their immediate future that they're probably going to be doing a whole lot. So if you put something passive in there, and we talked about small recreation area, maybe even putting skating areas or something like that had minimal impact, that could be reclaimed in the event that they needed it, that they would be open to that. Okay. And so then the question comes, what kind of park piece do we need down there? And then, you know, a couple years ago, when we were pulling features out of downtown and not adding them, but kind of, we haven't had any deep discussions on that.
Okay.
I got another one, but I'll let council keep going. Other questions, comments from council? Councillor Ferguson.
Also, I'll echo a bit of what Mayor Warman said there. I'd like to see a focus on the art side right now. Banners, art poles, etc. I think those are affordable, quick wins. We've already seen some of that with the paintings by the Arts Council, and it was received very well by the community. And I'd also like to see a targeted approach to encourage usage of the newly redesigned Rennie Hall Plaza. So it'd be nice to see some concerts, events, festivals down there. Would also be nice to see some sort of downtown entrance feature. However, this is likely one of the more costly endeavors, and it might be worthwhile waiting a few years for that one, considering the investment that's going on the east side walkway this year.
Okay, other questions, comments, Councillor Ward?
I agree. Would like to see, so there are some regulation policy actions here. So the festival and events policy, the special event guideline document we actually have used before, and that does make it easier for applying for special events now instead of having documents kind of all over the place. So planning's done well and having that kind of generated in one area. I think it would be good if we could, again, make it easier to have events in Rennie Hall Plaza. So easily directed places to get the information on our website, things like that, that simplify it for people who may want to throw small events. I know in the past, there's been organizations that have had lunchtime events down at Rennie Hall Plaza. So there's been yoga. I think it was like yoga in the park, but kind of like yoga downtown. There's been musicians, things like that. I think we could have a more vibrant downtown if we were able to have maybe suggest this to some of the groups. I also like the idea of the regulation and policies drafted around the permits for outdoor boulevard cafes. We do have some restaurants down on Main Street, and it would be nice to take advantage of our summer weather by making it easy to have some outdoor dining. And those are also not particularly costly items to start with.
Okay. Other questions, comments? I had made a note here or whatever else around events, and Councillor Ferguson jumped on that already. One of the things is that, you know, we spent a bunch of money there to build an event type space downtown. One thought is as part of our budget discussion that, you know, do we incentivize groups to do things down there, that we would give them some kind of grant or donation if they, you know, reach out and they're hosting an event? Could we do a monetary donation towards it to incentivize them to host things down there? That you know, realistically our number one goal for downtown for this year should be using that space, and so we need to figure out how we get people to do that. So just a thought there, and you know, I know it'll come up in our budget discussions, but I just don't want to lose track of it. So I'm totally looking at Joanna 100,000,000% to make sure she makes a note of it, that in our future budget discussion pieces that we talk about, is there something there that we could do to incentivize groups to do things down there? And monetary I always find is the easiest way to get people a little bit more excited. Other than that, this is largely a discussion piece only, to get a frame of mind of where council's thinking and where we're going. A lot of these pieces will be things that we discuss in budget, and it's, you know, the purpose of this report is to give us a refresher about what's in there and what's been talked about. What is interesting here is there's a lot happening in the sense that there's a lot of pieces that are getting knocked off. That at what point do you talk about refreshing this document? And I'm not saying do it next year, but it's just a comment. If there's no more questions or comments, motion to accept this as information. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Local Authorities Election Act. Joanna, you're doing this one.
Hello, Mayor and Council. So this report is to provide council information regarding section 147(8)(1) of the Local Authorities Election Act. The town of Slave Lake held its general municipal election on October 18th, 2021. In accordance with section 147 4-1 of the LAEA, all candidates are required to file a campaign disclosure statements on or before March 1st, immediately following the general election. In the case of the 2021 general election, the deadline to file was on or before March 1st, 2022. Candidates for the election are required to file Form 4, nomination paper, and candidates acceptance as prescribed by the LAEA. And the candidate's acceptance includes a candidate swearing to a number of items, one of which is including that they have read Part 5.1, the election finances and contributions disclosure of the LAEA, and that they understand its contents. Pursuant to Section 147-8 of the LAEA, the Secretary for the Town of Slave Lake, as defined in the LAEA, must transmit a report to council identifying the candidates who failed to file their campaign disclosure statements within the prescribed time. Upon receipt of the report by council, the report must be made public. The following candidates failed to file their campaign disclosure statements within the prescribed timeframe: Darren Busk of Slave Lake, Alberta, Philip Gilbert Loken of Slave Lake, Alberta, and Rebecca King of Slave Lake, Alberta. Any of the above listed candidates may, within the 60-day period following the date on which this report to council is made public, apply to the Court of King's Bench for relief, and upon hearing the application, the court may dispense the compliance of the campaign disclosure statement requirements or any part thereof, extend the time for compliance, make any order to secure compliance, or refuse the application. This report will be made public immediately following the November 8th, 2022 council meeting through the following methods. It will be included in the November 8th, 2022 council meeting agenda package and minutes and posted on the Town of Slave Lake's website. Pursuant to Section 22(1)(2) of the LAEA, as a result of this report being transmitted to council, if the court does not grant appropriate relief to an above listed candidate, the candidate is ineligible to be nominated for election for the applicable period of the time prescribed in that section. In addition, Section 205 of the LAEA provides that the Town of Slave Lake shall notify the Alberta Election Commissioners within a reasonable time any act or admission that, in the opinion of the Town of Slave Lake, likely constitutes an offense under the LAEA. Section 147-84 of the LAEA specifies that a candidate who fails to file a campaign disclosure statement by April 1st in the year following a general election is guilty of an offense and liable to a fine of not more than $5,000. This report will be sent to the Alberta Election Commissioner following the November 8th council meeting. And Section 147-7 of the LAEA requires a candidate who has failed to file their disclosure statement by the March 1st, 2022 deadline to pay a $500 late filing fee to the Town of Slave Lake within 30 days of the deadline to file. In this case, by no later than March 31st, 2022. If the late filing fee is not paid, the Town of Slave Lake is required to send a notice to the candidate indicating the amount of the late filing fee to be paid. The required late filing fee notice was sent to each of the above listed candidates on November 3rd, 2022 by registered mail. If the candidate fails to pay the late filing fee set out in the notice, the Town of Slave Lake may file a copy of the notice with the clerk of the Court of King's Bench, and on being filed, the notice will have the same force and effect and may be enforced as if it were a judgment of the court. So the recommendation to council is that you accept this report as information and that this report be made public in accordance with Section 147(8)(1) of the Local Authorities Election Act. Any questions?
Okay. So realistically, this is something that we have to do,
Yes,
and there's no way around that, right?
that is correct. If you don't do it, then the municipality would be non-compliant with the Local Authorities Election Act and then be liable to the elections commissioner yourself.
Probably not a good thing. Okay, so so we've sent notice to these people there that they've got a $500 fine. So if they fail to pay the late filing fee set out in this notice of the $500,
Correct.
then the Town of Slave Lake may file a copy of the notice with the clerk of Court of King's Bench.
Yes.
So we don't have to.
If they don't file within if they don't pay the late fee within 30 days, regardless, this report's going to the election commissioner and it deems them ineligible unless they apply for relief to the court,
Okay, so no matter what, this is going to.
the elections commissioner.
And whether they pay the fine or not, they're deemed ineligible and they have to go to deal with the court. But what happens with a $500 fine to the town of Slave Lake if they don't pay it?
So the town of Slave Lake has the option whether, as indicated in the report, whether we wish to pursue it with.
We would just have to go file
Essentially,
it.
we'd have
court,
to
like,
put it before the
small
small
claims
claims
court
bench.
and go get our $500.
Yeah, ask for a judgment that would be, deemed.
Up to $5,000.
Okay. Well, I don't have any desire to push on that button. But so realistically, your job was to notify them and notify us, which you've done, where you're just looking for a motion for information.
That's correct.
Okay, Counselor Adams.
I move that council accept the report as information and that this report be made public in accordance with section 147.81 of the Local Authorities Elections Act.
Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, agent status program. I have a question. I'm gonna make myself sound stupid here, but was this late edition? Because I feel like when I looked at this earlier today, it was not in there.
Was added 5 minutes before the meeting.
Okay,
That was.
That was the new.
That was the new one.
that was the new one. Okay. Okay, let's do it.
So because it was a late edition, I'm looking at it from my phone, so I apologize here.
Mark, I could do one better for you if you want.
What's
Right,
that?
right here in paper.
It's not in your printed copies. It's literally added 5 minutes before the meeting started.
5 minutes before the meeting started. Okay.
Didn't know how to push all the buttons to get the report to you.
Okay. Well, that person needs to be reprimanded. Oh, yeah, that was- okay,
Yeah, so the purpose of tonight's report is just to bring some information about the agent status program that we've looked at through the Hampton Police Service. They've had this program. Well, I was in police college in 2007. They had it then. It's a very successful program that they have. And in speaking with the constable who runs the program in Hampton Police headquarters there, it's essentially a program where business owners, mainly commercial and industrial, can sign up for the program. They go down to headquarters, they sign a form authorizing peace officers or police officers to patrol their industrial lot, look for trespassers or anybody causing mischief. And they are given the authority through this letter of consent to either arrest or issue a bound notice right off the hop. Especially at 2 a.m. And this is gonna benefit the RCMP more than it's gonna benefit us as peace officers. But for example, if the post office kept their door opened, or Scotiabank kept their lobby door open for ATM access, and there's some people in there causing damage, well, we automatically have consent from Scotiabank to conduct an arrest or to issue a ban notice saying, you can't be doing any of this stuff here. It's unlawful, and we're going to issue a ban notice. Whereas before and the RCMP, and we have some authority as well to act right away, but it's kind of difficult. We're not acting on behalf of the agent or the property owner. So with this letter of consent, we can enter that private property or that industrial lot and act right away without taking down a name and maybe calling that business owner and saying, does this guy work for you? He's saying he does. We can take action right away and then do a follow-up afterwards. It's just an extra tool for us to have. It's a very basic program. It would consist of the town of Slave Lake, and we'd have to discuss this internally, supplying a sign. And that's the way the Edmonton Police do it, and we don't have to operate that way, but they get a free sign and it just says agent, and they get a sticker so they can put that sticker in their business window. And so it's kind of a deterrent. They see the big police logo and they say, oh, okay, so either maybe there's cameras here or there's cops here. They come and check our doorknobs at night or check our vehicle doors or etc. So the constable I spoke to, they love the program. It's free. It costs nothing to the Edmonton taxpayer. But they're a much larger city and they can afford making these signs, in large quantities. So we'd have to discuss if we want to charge for a sign and a sticker. I've reached out to some businesses in town asking for a quote. I'm just waiting to hear back what a foot by foot sign would cost. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, questions, comments, Councillor Ward.
And so is the internal database applicable to Slave Lake or is it just applicable to Edmonton as well? Because it says once you've registered that you'd be entered into this database. Is that just an example of what happens or is that would also happen here?
So we enter onto CPIC, the Canadian Police Information Center, which we can all access. Any police agency within Canada can access that. So it would be inputted into CPIC. It would also be inputted into our own internal system. So it's if we're just on patrol and we come across Joe Blow who's trespassing or we suspect is trespassing, we type the name in very quick and it'll pop up saying, okay, yeah, he's banned, or keep an eye on this. Whatever alert that agent wants to put on the system, we would input it on their behalf.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting, especially considering industrial property crime appears to be an issue here. I didn't realize that, and I guess that's being naive about it. I didn't realize that with the trespassing concern that you had to contact the business first. So I think this is great.
Counselor Graham.
Yeah, so Casey mentioned tonight they have a full complement, and this is something you went over with the RCMP a little bit already.
Yeah, and I've been chatting with Casey on this. To even use their logo, we have to get permission from their higher ups. So he reached out to their higher ups and they're all for it. They're like, absolutely, put our logo on and let's do it.
So is this something we're thinking there's increased police presence? Like what the industrial area wants is after hours and stuff, right?
Yeah.
This isn't going to change that. This is not going to get them in there when it's dark, right? Like this isn't changing anything. This is just during the day you could go in and make yourself feel comfortable.
You bet. And they're not going to give us keys to that's not the point of this. It's just, if we're on patrol and the gates are open, let's go in there and have a look. Let's throw on our spotlights and let's see what we can find. And if we find something, then we can act on it without having to worry, geez, is that guy an employee? Does he have permission to be here? We could automatically assume that maybe he is a trespasser. And of course, we would follow our investigation procedures and not automatically, start, conducting an arrest and taking him down. We would follow our protocols on that. But it would just give us that assumption that we can be on the property, we're there lawfully, and we can act accordingly.
Yeah, I like it.
Other questions, comments? So is this only for bylaw or is this for RCMP as well?
Both.
For both, okay. So obviously a extremely low cost item to help us increase presence out there and work with the business community. I think that's a no brainer. So two things I would encourage you to do. Number one, obviously we just got this and I'm just reading through it, but my first thought, if I was reading this from the outside in, I don't necessarily get that message. So if it was something that was a little bit more clear to a business person that, hey, sometimes we don't have the authority to go on your property, but with this, if you sign up, we can, and we can deal with problems without phoning you at 2 a.m. Instead of letting them go because we have no authority to do it. I think that would go a long way. We have industrial business, like basically email thread that includes, I don't know, Mark, if you're on it.
I actually forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I encourage you to use that because it literally targets a vast majority of the industrial businesses in Slave Lake. RCMP is tied into it. Some of the elected officials are tied into it. And basically it's very rudimentary piece of thing. It's just a group email package that all of a sudden one business owner will send a thing out and say, hey, I just had this suspicious looking car in our area, FYI. Another person says, okay, yeah, keep an eye out for it. Or, you know what, this person, we got a video of this person, he was stealing from us. Hey, I know who that is. It's helped us in the past. So I would encourage you to reach out to that group and you probably get massive sign up in that right away.
I forgot about that. That's a good thought. The other thing we've done was reach out to the MD. And the purpose for that is because we have our own industrial lots that kind of back on to the MD. Like they're so close. You got Home Hardware and you got you got literally MD here in town here. So we reached out to the MD saying, hey, we want to do this. And your businesses are on your side. Maybe do you guys want to come on board with that? And I just heard back on Friday from the MD that they want to have discussions. So they haven't said one way or the other, but we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, the other group I was going to say was Chamber of Commerce. So reaching out to them or whatever else, they can distribute that information to very quickly to a number of their members, the 150 some members that they got going on. That I think you get a lot of sign up very quickly, and I think that one's a no-brainer.
So at this point in time, this is for information only. We're not ready to launch the
I know.
But
when you are, I encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
And once you are ready to do it, like that'd be a great thing, the mayor's vlog or whatever else to say, hey, business community or something that's going on, sign up. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of stuff that we want to promote. So reach out when you're ready. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, motion to accept as information. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, guys. Okay, correspondence from the town of Fox Creek. And so essentially there is actually, Mark, do you guys sec? Because maybe you know about this and I don't. So apparently that Fox Creek is concerned about victim services is under a redesign from the province. Do you know anything about this or no?
No, I don't.
Okay, well then I have nothing more for you. Thanks. Have a great night.
Thanks for coming back.
Probably should have asked Casey when he was here because he probably would have had a better idea. I'll reach out to him tomorrow, but realistically, yeah, they're quite concerned that the province has decided to look in this box and not happy with some of the potential changes that are coming. Losses of support, loss of coordination, loss of funding all the way.
Have we heard anything from our victim services?
Nothing.
Yeah, essentially, they're moving back to a regional, a tighter, like a centralized model.
What does
Is
that mean?
in essence what some of the changes are to victim services.
It was like 3 years or something, or 5 years.
I think it's happening soon.
Yeah, that's what I got from this report.
Okay, and so largely they're sending this around to everyone to say, hey, we're concerned. And so knowing not anything about it, not hearing from our own victim services, should probably reach out to them and kind of get some feedback. Councillor Adams.
Exactly. what we said.
Okay.
You're volunteering to reach out?
Do
they sit at Protective Services Committee,
don't know.
Victim Services?
Okay.
I can, you make a motion, I can look at it. That's fine.
Yeah, well, I make a motion that we task administration to reach out to victim services to get some feedback on proposed changes to provincial framework. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Métis Nation is reached out there. They would like a flag raise for their event on November 16th for Métis Week and request some attendance in the flag raising. Sean usually deals with all this in the past to make sure that we get the flag and it gets raised and so on and so forth. It's a small logistical piece, but knowing we have some vacancy in that, please reach out. We've never needed a motion for this, so I think it's more of an information piece. And I'd let Joanna know that we'd be happy to attend there. When really that's about all that needs to be said on that one. Mayor's Corner. Yeah, things have been busy. So I talked briefly about the SDAB piece and having to have some discussions legal on that and postponing things, and lots of feedback from residents and people affected by that. So the phone is ringing a lot over the last 2 weeks for those pieces. ANSA already touched on too, but great strategic planning meeting. More than anything, excited to see some momentum happening in there. Budget, so pieces on budget. Their council spent all day on Monday, which was literally just yesterday. That felt like a week ago, but yeah, that was yesterday. We're here all day working on capital budget discussion. And so talking about some HR pieces and talking about funding pieces, how that affects our reserves and how we've got to look at moving money around in reserves and realistically a big discussion on how we deal with roads moving forward. MSI funding has been a big part of our road program. So to take $1 million hit a year when we typically only do approximately, $1.5 to $2.5 million worth of road work every year, shows you that we don't have a lot of money to do roads. And so moving forward, that's not sustainable. So we gotta figure something out there. So we've been advocating hard to our MLAs and our ministers. But that one probably hurts more than anything. That's on the capital side. On the operational side, yeah, like it's no secret here that budget has been tough. And so I'll publicly say that I'm throwing out there now that, our initial discussions in budget have talked about an over 10% increase in taxes to sustain the service levels that we have. And we're compounded by a couple of different things. Number one, on one side, I always say to people all the time, and Joe and I met today to talk about this a little bit. And he's doing some articling that's coming out. But at the end of the day, we don't run one business, we run 10 or 12 of them. And so we have a business that does fire services, and a business that does recreation, one that does seniors, and one that does programming, and one that does RCMP and landfill and airports and all these other things. And realistically, in every single one of them, in every single line item, inflation is killing us. And so Alberta inflation is talking about over 8%. So when you're talking about the cost to run all these businesses is up close to 8%, it's no wonder we're looking at a 10% tax increase. That being said, the other thing we're compounded by is if we want to maintain service levels, we need people to do it. This week, lots of our residents had to feel the frustration of getting their own kids to school on their own because we can't find bus drivers for buses, and we don't know when that's changing around. Well, if we want to do economic development, we want to do stuff in health, we want to do stuff in programming and services and Zamboni the ice and keep clean water running. We need people and stuff to do that. And so, we're in our own circumstance where, the market is hotter than it's ever been. We're having to be as competitive as we've ever been. We got to think of innovative ways to keep the people that we have as well as attract new ones. Those don't come for free either. And so budget is tough. So along that line, we wanted to reach out to residents. And so we've got a piece coming there that we're advertising already. There is a bit of a survey that is both in the newspaper and online digitally that says, hey, we want to know where do you think we should be spending money? Where do you think we should be increasing service levels? Where do you think we should be decreasing service levels? Council will be meeting again at the end of the month after we've tabulated some of that data and dig some more into budget. But there's still a lot of work to do, to say the least. I think people think that the whole strategy is just like every year we say, oh, it's going to be really big. And then we come back and say, look at all the hard work that we did. And we pat ourselves in the back. And, I know it might seem like that on that side, but on this side, it's literally like, oh my God, how are we going to pay for all this? And we do some changes and some tweaks and do whatever else to try and make it all work. But for the large part, and my whole time on council, I don't think residents have seen a decrease in service levels. So we've been able to maintain those things with minimal increases or no increases as in some years. But I can tell you, there's a point where that string, it only goes so far. And so I feel like in my own head, I'm at that point and I got to figure out what to do next. Luckily, I have some great, smart people here in council with me, administration that has some differently ideas, and we look forward to the public feedback to see where that goes. CRC, yeah, that's a whole nother thing I'm trying to learn and figure out. An exciting note though, Mr. Jeff Simpson and I toured a land developer last week, a significantly large land developer from the Edmonton Capital Region that does a significant amount of work there, is starting to expand and do things in different communities. And so we highlighted the need for more high density residential housing is a huge issue for us here. Even adding more housing and infill into some of our empty lots in town, just in the single family type stuff, show them some of those pieces. We took them for a tour of Fournier Place and explained the whole concept there. We showed them some land potentially that both councils have identified for future discussions around industrial land. Just basically highlighted, hey, there is opportunity here. I want to thank Councillor Gramick, who was kind of the one that got the bug in this developer's ear and connected us with them. And so it shows that this stuff happens because we reach into the right boxes and use those connections and use networking, because you never know what's going to happen. But what was significant was this wasn't a small time developer. This was the hundreds of millions of dollars spent every year on development type developer. And so if we can pique some interest in Slave Lake and see some growth there, that's a huge piece for the community, which is why I didn't go to the Northern Alberta Elected Leaders campaign. And so since then, that group has reached out. They're getting some more information. We've connected them with local real estate and excited to see where that goes. So with all those things, still a lot of work to happen before something could actually happen. But the fact that somebody's looking in the box, I think is exciting. Rail, I had a rail and meeting and transportation rail capacity. So there's basically a group there that's very concerned about rail capacity. And so in the past, it's affected our mills here where we've had to shut down for periodic pieces where we've got product made, but we can't get it out. And so there's a large frustration both from oil and gas and from forestry and agriculture about the fact that seems to be this monopoly system on rail cars and getting access to them. And sometimes it's like an auction, apparently at some points, to get a rail car rather than just knowing, hey, I got X amount coming. Hey, we're going to auction this off and see who'll pay the most to get it. And so that's a huge frustration. And so this group's trying to put together some advocacy and lobbying pieces for it. They literally want to meet every single week. And so we're meeting again this week and we'll see where that goes. But a lot of it is that, that impacts jobs, it impacts industry, our area, and it has a big role to play. So we'll be spending some time learning that. Encourage everyone to get out to Legion this Friday for Remembrance Day. And ceremony starts at 11 o'clock. And I hope to see lots of people out there. It's supposed to be +1 on Friday, so no excuses for not going. Reminder again, we talked about it real quick, but Town Hall RCMP next week. Please send in some questions. Please send some feedback. Please come to the event. We want to hear what your concerns are in the community because it shapes how we deal with things in the future. State of the Lake obviously is another big thing we've touched on previously, but the idea is that we want to take an opportunity to showcase how much stuff is going on in this region, as well as what the future looks like. And so we've reached out to Tamarack, one of the big oil field companies that's doing a ton of work and exploration north of town. And their senior management group is coming out of Calgary to basically give us an update and say, hey, this is what the world looks like, and this is what we're up to, and this is what we're doing. Additionally, Alberta Forest Products is their president and vice president is going to be attending as well to give a purview of what it's like in the forestry industry. And so we're going to be inviting a number of business people. It's basically an open call. But if you are a business person or employee that's in town and you want to know what the future of the economy looks like now and what the future looks like, we encourage you to join our State of the Lake event at the Legacy Center on November 30th at 11:30 a.m. Ideally though, some lunch will be provided. And so we encourage you to register through the chamber stuff. It is online. Is it posted yet?
I just sent the invitation.
Okay, so it's coming out there. I'll do a video about that coming up. Additionally, we when economy is hot, there's more companies doing business in town. And so they also want to give back to the community and show that they're doing business in town. And so I've been working behind the scenes with one particular company there that's interested in making a sizable investment in Slave Lake. And so those are exciting things to be happening because they help make it a little bit easier to do things like budget. So definitely a lot going on behind the scenes. Any discussion or sorry, any other things to add? Do I normally say that? No, I don't. So let's just call it a night. It's been a long day. Yeah, so we don't have a motion. We don't have a closed session tonight. So just motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried.